There are some Waves plugins that have taken my mixes from this to this. And most of these plugins you might not even know about, but if you know more than 3 of the 5, let me know in the comments below and let me know that you're a Waves power user. So first up on our list is the Waves MV2, and the reason why I love this so much is because it does a different type of compression that I don't see a whole lot of other compressor plugins doing. Not only does it have typical downwards compression like you would normally see, it also has upwards compression, so the quieter parts are actually getting brought up. It's a really interesting type of compression, and it works really, really well on bass to kind of solidify things and just make an absolute brick of a waveform. The bass and the low end of the bass is something that I want consistent, and having this upwards and downwards compression to really lock things in place makes it so much nicer. So let's take a listen to this track here. So let's solo out the bass and listen to it here. You can see how I'm locking that in. Let me turn this off and I'll turn it back on and you can hear the difference between the two. Especially during those higher parts where it starts to lose a bit of that volume, that MV2 is kind of really starting to push it back in the mix, right where it's supposed to be. Number 2 on this list is one of my personal favorites, Infected Mushroom Pusher. This plugin just adds a bit of magic to whatever you want to throw it on, and I really like throwing it on buses, especially the master bus, right before I go to the limiter. It has some really neat things, and sometimes I feel like a mix is just lacking something. This plugin is usually what I reach for. My favorite part about it, though, is the mode down here where you can switch from limiting to clipping, and I like to push the clipper a little bit here to really kind of get it to sit in the mix a bit better. So this is on the master bus. So as I turn this dial up, pay attention to how the drums actually start to poke through in the mix just a little bit more. You can really go crazy with this, so be a little bit careful, but it's really such a neat plugin. You can also control the high end, you can control the stereo image. There's this magic slider here with dynamic punch and focus and the body, all sorts of really neat stuff. I really like using this plugin on the drums as well. So I could just find the key of the song by selecting the key here, and then actually dragging the slider up and adding some low harmonics to it. It's a must-have plugin for mastering, at least for me. And now number 3 is kind of a bonus for you. I put 2 plugins in the same one. You're welcome. RBass and RVox. And I know that these plugins get used quite often, but I still feel like they get overlooked by a lot of people. These are very powerful plugins, and I use them all the time. In fact, they are on almost every single one of my mixes. First, we'll start with RBass. It's a very simple plugin, but what it does is it adds some low-end frequencies that you can select right here to whatever you want. So for that bass, I noticed some of the low end was disappearing during the high parts of that bass part. So all I got to do is select this, start playing with the intensity, and start listening. Adds a lot of low end to it, but also adds some low end during those higher parts when it started to disappear a little bit. This is such a very simple but very powerful plugin. Next up here is RVox. I love this plugin so much. I use this on the individual vocals. I even use this on the vocal bus. Listen to what it does to the entire vocal stack here.
It's the end of the world, and it's coming right for you. End of the world, not gonna make it through. Don't say I didn't warn you when the mushroom cloud's coming for you. And
once again, this is a very simple plugin, just a couple sliders here. The further you drag this slider down, the more compression that you get. And it can really take a vocal and just get it to set in the mix. Listen to the before and after in the context of the entire track.
It's the end of the world, and it's coming right for you. End of the world, not gonna make it through. Don't say I didn't warn you when the mushroom cloud's coming for you.
Such a powerhouse of a plugin. Now, next up is one that I don't see getting used very often, and that is DeBreath. Now, a lot of you are probably thinking, why don't you just manually cut the breaths out of your vocals? Well, I don't like to cut the breaths completely out sometimes. Sometimes I just want to control them, and DeBreath will actually allow me to control the breaths and not eliminate them entirely. I can eliminate them if I want to, but sometimes I prefer them back in. Now, the problem is with metal vocals and anything that's like in a more aggressive genre, even hip hop even, breaths get accentuated way above than what they should be, and sometimes they get very, very harsh. I'm going to turn this plugin off and listen to my main vocal here and listen to how harsh these breaths are.
End of the world, not gonna make it through. Don't say
Hear that part right there where it goes, and it's just so loud.
not gonna make it through.
It's very loud and pretty obnoxious, even in the context of the mix. But I don't want to cut it out entirely because I kind of like the aggression that it adds as I'm singing and having that like back and forth with it. I just want to attenuate that breath down a little bit. And so adding DeBreath and dragging this reduction slider down a little bit is perfect. You set the threshold and the energy here. So the breath and then the energy, the gate, you set those to where you like them depending on your vocal. And then you have this reduction knob, which you can turn all the way down and it completely eliminates the breath, or you can kind of leave some of it in there, which is what I prefer to do. I'm going to take it all the way out, then I'm going to bring it back in and I'll show you the difference.
End of the world, not gonna make it through.
Completely eliminated that breath. Pretty impressive. But I still want it there. I just want it attenuated just a bit. So I'm going to bring it down by like negative 24-ish.
End of the world, not gonna make it through.
Maybe just a little bit more.
End of the world, not gonna make it through.
Such a brilliant plugin. Now, before I go to the fifth plugin, it doesn't matter if you have these plugins or not if you're not getting great sounding vocals at the source. That's why I made an entire free workshop that you can watch down in the description below. It goes from recording vocals to setting up your room to even going through a really awesome mix with even stock plugins in your DAW. You're gonna love it. The link will be down in the description below. And now the last plugin is Kramer PIE. This is a compressor plugin that just sounds awesome on drums. So here on my shells bus, you'll be able to hear just the shells of the drums. And I'm looking for a bit more sustain out of that snare and a bit more crunch. And so what I have here is I have the threshold set to where I'm getting around -2 to -3 dB of gain reduction, and I'm bringing the output back up, and I'm having around a 3:1 ratio with a super fast decay time. And listen to how the snare sustains out a little longer.
When the mushroom cloud's coming for you. End of the world, let's say end of the world now.
Now, all of these tools are super helpful, but if you don't understand how the tools work, you're not going to be able to use the tools to the best of their ability. And in fact, there's one mixing concept that all of these tools revolve around. And if you want to know more of what I'm talking about, you can watch this video right here. In that video, I break down the one mixing concept that every other mixing rule follows. And once I understood it, it changed my mixes forever. You can click there. I'll see you over there. And now, as always, go create.